Hi everyone, it's Tox from CritsHappen.com. Thanks for watching and welcome back. So Gen Con 2013 recently finished up, and in my opinion, what's sitting in front of me was the gem of the convention. This is a game called Gravwell, and it's designed by Corey Young and it's brought out by Cryptozoic Entertainment. It's a 2 to 4 player game that involves cards, drafting, a little bit of gambling, a little bit of luck, and some strategic moves against playing the type of people you're playing against. Meaning there's a little bit of playing the game and a little bit of playing your opponents, but it makes for a very fun time. The object is very simple. We're going to start inside the singularity of a black hole, and we're going to have to use movement cards to get our way out of the spiral and out into the warp gate. First person who gets to the warp gate wins, but as always, it's not that easy. Let's go ahead and grab our derelict ships. Let's grab all the elements we can mine, and let's try and escape the singularity in the 9th dimension with Gravwell. Hey everybody, it's Tox from CritsHappen.com. I am back with a critical play of Gravwell, Escape from the 9th Dimension. This was pretty much the hit of Gen Con, or at least the gem of Gen Con, which we recently got home from. And sitting across the table from me, who you can't see because you can't see me, so why could you see her, is Mrs. Tox, and she is going to help me play a 2-player game of Gravwell. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, we're going to go through a little bit of the rules here and explain what happens in a game, what the game is about, and then walk through a 2-player game. So the first thing to know is that we are survivors of ships that have made it through or into a black hole. Problem is now we have to get out of this black hole, and everything has changed in terms of physics and the way things move and the way things operate. So we start in this singularity here, and we're going to be playing cards that will draft, and that will hopefully get us around this ring out to the warp gate. And the winner is the first person to land on the warp gate. Now, among us being the 2 survivors in here, there are also 2 derelict ships, which from our standpoint has become known as the Reavers from Firefly, and it just kind of fits. But you can call them whatever you like. The rules call them the derelicts. They are not player pieces, they are like NPCs, but they're going to impact gameplay. Now gameplay is very simple. The game takes place over 6 rounds, which you keep track of with this round marker. And each round is going to start with us putting out 6 stacks of cards to be able to draft from. You basically put out 3 stacks of cards per player, where 1 card is face down and 1 card is face up. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about the different types of cards. So there are green movement cards, there are blue pull cards, and purple push cards. Essentially the way movement works inside of Gravwell is your ship is always going to be attracted to the closest ship to it. You're going to be pulled towards that nearest ship. The first player will automatically come out of the singularity. The next player will be pulled towards that ship out of the singularity. But then from there, movement is going to depend on who is closer to who and on who is on which side of each other. And yes, these derelict ships are going to impact that as the game goes on. Normal movement is with the green cards. You will just move your spaceship, the number indicated, towards the nearest spaceship. And that could be behind you or in front of you. The pull cards leaves you exactly where you are and pulls everybody closer to you, including the derelict ships. The push cards push you and move you in the opposite direction of where you would normally be pulled to. Now, what are the letters for and the different elements? Essentially, the theme of the game is that we're using these cards, which are going to represent different elements that we're mining inside of this black hole to use as energy to get us out of the black hole. They each start with a letter, so H, Q, and U, for example, between hydrogen, quivarium, and uranium. And when we play cards, we're going to play cards at the same time, and they're going to be resolved from A to Z order. So the rules are actually very simple, but the gameplay is very tricky, which you'll see in a second. So we're going to go ahead and set up a first round draft. We'll go through the draft, we'll start playing, and we'll show you how Gravwell works. So one other thing I failed to mention during setup was these emergency stop cards. Each player is given one, and you play it with this emergency stop face up in front of you. At any time during each round, so 6 times each game if you make it to the 6th round, you can use the emergency stop to cancel the effects of a card that you have just played. Now, why would you want to cancel your own card? You will see as this game goes on. So let's go ahead and set up a draft. So the first thing we do is we will set out 6 stacks of cards with 1 card face down and 1 card face up. So you're going to know half of what you could potentially be drafting. And a good rule of thumb, as the rulebook points out, is early in the game, high numbers are really good. I think the lowest number is 1 and the highest number is 10. So we'll go ahead and get started. I will pass to you and let you go ahead and draft first.
I'll let you go first since I won the last game.
Since you, okay, yeah, you did win the last game. All right, so I'll go ahead and go first. So I am going to take Yttrium. And I will show everybody what I got. Since you don't know. Alright, and then I am going to take this, Xenon. And then I will take Thorium. Alright, so now when that's done, each player is going to have a hand of 6 cards. Now, as the round is going to progress, we're each going to pick one card. We're going to put that face down in front of us. Once we've each picked, we're then going to flip our cards face up, and we're going to move on from there. So, I think I am going to play this. And this will be interesting for the viewers because they don't know what you have or what you're plotting, but they know what I have. And they'll be able to say, hey man, you played completely wrong and your wife kicked your butt. This is actually, in my opinion, the gem of Gen Con. Corey, the designer, is a great guy. Got to talk to him on Twitter a bunch of times. Corey Jones, the president of Cryptozoic, helped, of course, bring this to reality. And it's just a great story. It's a great game we've had a lot of fun with. And hopefully you enjoy the playthrough here. So, all right, let's see what our first cards are. All right, so Plutonium and Thorium. So, again, they resolve A to Z. So Plutonium is going to go first, and Mrs. Tox will move 5. And then I am going to resolve my Thorium, and I'm going to move 2. So these would get discarded, and we would do this again. Now, the challenge and the trick in Grabwell is, while that seems all very simple, Mrs. Tox is now going to have her ship attracted to me, as she should. But it's going to be attracted to me because I am the closest ship to her. However, she may want to play something that has a higher letter to think that I would go first and jump ahead of her because I am going to be attracted to her. Yes, there are tons of attraction quotes and lines and one-liners you can use in this game, so it is a great game to play with your spouse if you want to do that. I am actually going to... I am going to go ahead and play this. Alright, what do we got? Silicon and Magnesium. Alright, so Magnesium is going to go first, and I'm going to move 10. I was there, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. Yep. And then Silicon is going to go, and she's going to move 9, and she is closest to me, so she will move up there. Some people I've heard online say they have a problem that the singularity itself doesn't have a pull back into it. But for thematics of the game, I'm not going to hold these guys to exact science. I think this is a much lighter game to that, so you'll see how it goes along. All right, so for our third card, what are we going to go ahead and play here? Same kind of thing, but see, now we're closer to each other. We got to figure out how this is going to work. All right, what do we got? Iridium and Lithium. And as we've been doing multiple times, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K,
I was hoping that your card was going to go first.
All right, so I do go first.
No, mine's L-I. Oh, yours is I.
Yes.
I keep thinking that's an L.
I know. That's okay.
Okay,
right.
so it does work out for me.
But that's a good point. So every letter of the alphabet is represented once. So there's 26 cards in all. So while yes, that is deceiving and may look like an L to some people, it's not. It's a capital I for Iridium. So I actually resolve first. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you're going to resolve, and you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. However, one of the rules is we're not allowed to be on the same space together, so she will move 1 space forward and draft ahead of me. So she's still ahead of me, but now it's really, really close as to what's going to happen here. So I think we will go ahead and play this.
I'm going to take a gamble on it.
You going to take a gamble? All right, let's see. That's a part of the fun of the game. All right, so Mrs. Tox has pulled a Gallium and I put down a Yttrium. So you have the option of either moving 5 backwards because I'm closest to you.
I'm going to hit my emergency stop.
You're going to hit your emergency stop, so that's going to cancel that card altogether. Then I'm going to go, and my Yttrium is going to pull me forward towards her. 8 on the derelict and 1 forward. So now we're in an interesting position of the game because the closest ship to me is the derelict. So now if I play a normal green move card, I'm going to move backwards against that derelict. So now it's time to use some of the draft strategy that I put into play. We'll see how this works. Next card. Ooh, okay, so Mrs. Tox is going to go first with Jacarium, and she is going to pull everyone to her. So I'll get pulled 3 back, and each derelict is... Oh, I'm sorry, 2. 1, 2. Each derelict is going to get pulled 2 back as well. So she stays put. Then my card resolves, which is Xenon. Now, this is a push. The push is going to move me in the opposite direction of where I would normally be pulled. My force right now would pull me towards the derelict going backwards, so my push actually turns into a move forwards for me, and that works out really, really well. However, we now have the last card of the round, which for me is just a hydrogen and a green, and you have Dysprosium. So she is going to go first and move 5 forward and draft 1 ahead. Then I am going to move. Now the closest ship to me is actually Mrs. Tox. Now I can emergency stop that and stay where I am, but I don't know what's going to come out in the draft for the next round. Or I can take it and move backwards and end up 1 behind the derelict ship. I think I'm actually strategically going to do that and let that happen. So I am going to end up right behind the derelict ship. And that is the end of round 1 of Gravwell. So our emergency stops would flip back over, we'd move on to 2, and we're going to go ahead and redraft. Alright, on to round 2. So again, we put out 3 stacks per player. So with 2 players, we have 6 players. Now, for the second round of drafting, and from here on out, whoever is in last drafts first, which is another great strategic reason to go for, or end up in the back of the pack there. So I'm going to take Magnesium, which is the big 10, and end up with that in my hand, which is pretty good. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab the Xenon, which seemed to work pretty well last game. And, ooh, alright, and then I'll take Vanadium. Let's see how this works out. Alright, so that's the hand we have to play with, and let's see if we can achieve success getting out of the singularity here. Alright, so we're each going to put down a card. Now here's also one of my favorite parts of the game. So Mrs. Tox knows that I took this card. The question is, am I going to play that card? So part of the fun of this game is not just playing the game, but playing the players and trying to think about what your opponents are actually going to play instead of what you just think you would play, which is pretty fun. I think it's actually a pretty good time. So I'm going to play this. Alright, you ready?
Yes.
Boron and Zirconia. Okay, so that was pretty good. So she picked a really late letter in case I picked a high number to push myself ahead. I didn't, but I am attracted to the closest ship, which is the derelict, so I'm going to move 1, 2, and then draft 1 position ahead because we can't be on the same spot, which is then also going to allow Mrs. Tox to move towards me, and we'll explain why here. So this is called equidistance in the game. She is 1 space away from both the derelict and myself. Whenever you are equidistant, and it doesn't matter if you're 1 space or if you're 10 spaces equal between 2 ships, you are pulled in the direction of the side that has the most ships. So going this way, there's only 1 ship, but going this way, there are 2. So Mrs. Tox is actually pulled 7 out towards the warp gate. Pretty good. And she's now near the derelict ship there. So let's see what happens. Oh, she's thinking very hard about this one. She wants to win. Mrs. Tox does not like to lose.
Who does?
Nobody does. But some people like the experience. And this is a fun experience.
This is a very fun game.
This is something that is great. 2 players, 4 players. We've done 2, 3, 4 players. Done a couple of solo games on my own. Have yet to have it not be fun. Alright, here we go. I am playing Xenon. You are playing Wisternium. Alright, so the Wisternium goes first, and you're going to go, we're going to have dogs. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I am going to push off the derelict closest to me and go 1, 2, 3. Mrs. Tox is starting to have some separation here, so let's see what's going on. Alright, so now Mrs. Tox is going to need a push card, it looks like, because her closest pull is going to be this derelict. Now, I'm also in a position where I am equal distance from both derelicts, but there are 2 ships in front of me, so I'm going to be pulled towards the warp gate. So we will see how it works out here. Alright, you ready?
Yep.
The magnesium, the big 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you have thorium. You want to go back 2 or hit your emergency stop?
Nope,
You're going to go back 2? Alright, that seems like a good strategy. Alright, this is one of those games of you keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Alright, let's see what we get. Ooh, alright, Carbon, she's going to go first and she's pulled towards me. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm pulled 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright. It's getting tight now. Somebody's close to escaping the singularity. Let's see how this works out. Alright, ready? Ooh, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, you're closer to me, so you're going that way. Nice, that worked out for me. I'm going to go 6 ahead of you. Oh, so close. Alright, last card. You're going first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I go, and I get to the single, or I get to the warp gate and I get out. So that was pretty good. That actually finished in 2 rounds, which is pretty quick. Probably I'd say a 2-player game finishes in 2 or 3 rounds. We've played 3- and 4-player games that go to about 4 and 5. I think 5 is the longest we've gone. So that is Gravwell. So that's Gravwell. Just for the record, Mrs. Tox doesn't always win. So there's a lot that goes on with Gravwell. There's a lot of draft strategy around where your position is on the board after the first round. There's a lot of guesswork between what you saw your opponent's draft and what you think they're going to play given their situation on the board. And there's a lot of movement, even though we didn't get into it too much. In a 3- and 4-player game, these derelict ships tend to move around quite a bit. So there's a lot of things that you have to take into account when you're taking your turn and picking the card that you're going to use for movement. Overall, we've had an absolute blast with Gravwell. It's the gem of the convention, in my opinion. It's something that didn't have a large IP put to it. It was very, very simple. And because of that, it's easy to acquire. It's something that you can sit down, and because it's push, pull, or move, letters and numbers, it's very easy to teach. It's a light enough theme that everyone can latch onto it and understand what it is you're going to do. And after 1 or 2 gameplays, you easily understand the movements and how and what to predict in the situations that you're in. And you start laughing and having fun between everyone at the table with what they're going to do, what you think they're going to do, what you're going to do, what they thought you were going to do, and what really ends up happening. We've had an absolute blast with it. We hope that you enjoyed this critical playthrough. If you have any questions or any comments, definitely feel free to leave them below on the YouTube channel. You can of course join in the discussion on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Google Plus by searching Crits Happen, or at our homepage at critshappen.com. But until we see you next time, we hope you enjoy all of your space traveling times inside of Gravwell. Remember, you don't often grav, but when you do, you grav well. Thanks for watching. Keep rolling those dice. We hope they're all crits.